this is another deep cuts into the DMG, and although I'm going to go into to more detail, I'm going to pick up on page, what is that, 142, and again, it's about magic items. That's a huge section of this this book, mainly because of the artwork, really. But anyway, on page 142, it's going to be a little hard to do a little close up on this, but on page 142 there are random tables, and these random tables come in before you get deep into the types of magic items. And why I like these tables, although on a personal note I probably wouldn't use them too often, it's a great spark, and here's why. The 4 tables are divided up as such. Who created it or was intended to use it? What is a detail from its history? What minor property does it have? And what quirk does it have? And the reason why I like that is because it allows you as a game master to slightly modify and create some history for a magic item that normally wouldn't have, giving it a value and a purpose in your story beyond just handing out +1 swords because player characters feel like having a +1 sword. So an example is as far as the quirks and the histories and such, describing what the item is and how it's used and what its purpose was can lead to a lot of great story elements. For example, was the +1 sword part of a warrior's gift from the king? Is it supposed to be ornamental and not really designed to be used in combat? What is it made out of? Is it clear? Is it silver? Does it reflect the souls of those that you've slain? Does it glow in the sunlight? Is it pure black? What material is it made out of? Does it have gemstones in it? And then you can go on to have other quirks, like David in the Nerd Arts, he was saying about a magic sword that could sing. And not every sword, weapon-wise, has to have a bonus, like a +1 bonus. One of the things that I think that Dungeons & Dragons really missed the ball on, and it could be because Pathfinder did it, are masterwork weapons. Craft mastery or master-crafted weapons that offer a single bonus, like +1 to hit, or +1 damage, or +1 circumstantial. For example, a stiletto that gives a +1 bonus when used offhand, or a shield that gives a +1 bonus when used in siege combat, or a bow that gives a +1 bonus when used at long range, something like that. So, or a weapon that gives a +1 bonus when used specifically as a strength weapon and or a finesse weapon, or only gives a +1 bonus when used one-handed if it is a two-handed weapon, or vice versa when it's used two-handed instead of a one-handed weapon. Anyway, my point being is that you can make very great stories out of just masterwork weapons that do not have to have magic. On the other hand, you can have a magic weapon that doesn't have any bonus at all. It is a magic sword that when the hilt is grasped, it glows as, a continuous light spell. And that could be it. And it is a magic weapon. And maybe there are creatures that can only be hit by magic weapons, but that could be its only magical effect. But what I love are the little elements, the quirks and such. And there's nothing stopping any dungeon master from adding those little quirks even after the game has started. So for example, characters go into the cave, they kill a bunch of orcs, character gets a +1 sword, plays another 2-3 games, and it's like, well, I got a +2 giant slayer or something like that. I want to sell my +1 sword. And now here's the opportunity to go, well, it's not like these things are sold at a Kmart or big box store. Let's say the blade shows the souls of those it's killed. What if they go into a town and someone says, I know the face on that blade. Did you kill that guy? What if one day the player character themselves is sitting in a tavern after a couple of adventures and sees their own face in the blade of the sword? Is this an omen that the sword will one day kill them? Maybe someone sees the sword and a sage says, that is the sword of an ancient kingdom. If you go to the top of the mountain of Maclock on a full moon, a light will shine through it and reveal the entrance to a cave and a great treasure hoard. Well, this will, kind of encourage the player to keep the sword around. Who doesn't want a big giant treasure hoard where the sword shows it to him? Maybe there's a way to unlock a key in the hilt, but you have to somehow convince the greatest thief in the world to unlock the secrets to getting the key out. And then, of course, hoping that that greatest thief doesn't steal the key, which opens up a treasure hoard. Again, creating another story. Maybe the person carrying this +1 sword goes to a small area, and there's a cult that develops around the character. And the character's like, well, who are you? And they're like, oh, you must be the returned, you are the 8th removed returned king of Gragnar, and we are your faithful servants. And the player character's like, oh, this is kind of cool. Oh, you're my faithful servant? Yes. You possess the sword of the great king, so you must be the reincarnation of them. Okay, yeah, we will do anything you say. My wife and I, we understand that you have sexual desires. We are more than willing to satisfy your sexual desires. We understand that you prefer us to urinate and defecate on ourselves beforehand, so let me do that right now. There we go. You may take me as you wish, and pleasure yourself for myself. I'll get my wife in just a moment so that she may do the same. You could have some silly, some dumb, some great ideas concerning these magic items. Maybe they sing or talk, or whenever the sword is dropped, it always lands and bounces directly on its point or directly on its hilt, staying up in the air. Maybe this normally two-handed sword that's super heavy floats. It floats on water. Maybe it floats in the air. When it's released, it floats in the air. It could also be a great way to make stories more personal. So when the characters go into yet another dungeon crawl, someone in there and says, some evil guy is like, my uncle, the great orc king so-and-so, killed an enemy fair and square for that sword. You must have killed my uncle, now I will kill you. Just come up with some great ideas. And it doesn't mean that you have to come up with those ideas right away. A player character can have that +1 sword for 2, 3, 4 games, not think of anything of it, and then all of a sudden something happens, and now the blade of he thrusts it into the troll, and now the blade of the sword turns red. What the hell is that about? Also, the idea of I love the idea of unlocking magic items, unlocking them as you go along. So, for example, the person with the +1 sword knows that as they go on these journeys to the 5 corners of the medieval world, when they go to the 5 corners, they might meet these elders, and when they get there, they will unlock yet one more gift of that power, unlocking it to become a +2 sword with maybe some special quirk or event or something like that. But I'm going to end this video with reading out some of these things, maybe 2 or 3. Like, for example, who created it or was intended to use it. So the specific magic item, you can place it in your, other than just having it a treasure hoard that was found by someone, maybe there's a reason why it was created. So, for example, a fiend. The item is made of black iron or horn inscribed with runes, and any cloth or leather components are crafted from the hide of fiends. It is warm to the touch and features leering faces or vile runes engraved on its surface. Celestials find the item's presence repulsive. That's pretty cool. You find a +1 sword like that, maybe it's not an alignment change, but a holy character, that paladin that wants to use this weapon may not have an alignment change, but those in the church may feel that, hey, you need to destroy that thing. You're carrying it around. No, that's an item we should destroy. Maybe the player character with the +1 weapon says, well, I want to sell this thing, and goes to the local goes to the halfling crime lord, and the halfling crime lord's like, yeah, I'll give you twice what you're asking for it, but you owe me. And oh, by the way, if you double cross me, the public will find a dead body with this sword next to it. Someone important's going to die, this sword's going to be next to it, and guess who they're going to blame? You. So if you double cross me on anything, you know what's coming. You know, you can have all kinds of things. I mean, maybe a merchant looks at the sword, looks it up and down, and goes, I give you 20 gold for it. I mean, the merchant knows they can get 10 times, 20 times, 100 times what it's worth. I give you 20 gold for it. It's kind of useless. Nobody here needs it. You know, a villager, farmhand or something's going, I don't need magic swords. Give me a magic cow and I'm your man. You know, all kinds of things. So there's what minor property does it have? There's one here, waterborne. This item floats on water and other liquids. Its bearer has advantage on strength as athletic checks to swim. So imagine a sword that's got barnacles on it or something, and the sheath itself is made out of coral, and whenever the character goes in the water, the weapon floats and they get advantage on strength checks to use athletics to swim. It's a great idea. What is a detail from its history? Heroic. A great hero once wielded this item. Anyone who's familiar with the item's history expects great deeds from the new owner. So if your player character is kind of an a-hole, but people are looking up to you and expecting you to be a great hero, they're going to want to know, hey, you have the sword of so-and-so. Go slay that dragon. And the player character's like, I ain't slaying no dragon. Damn, I'm just trying to get a drink and get the hell out of here. And the public is constantly, hounding them. No, the great warriors, Thanek had that sword. You must represent the great hero Thanek. If you wielded the sword, you must be brave. Please go slay that dragon in the hill. Also, lastly, what quirk does it have? Frail. The item crumbles, frays, chips, or cracks slightly when wielded, worn, or activated. This quirk has no effect on its properties, but if the item has seen much use, it looks decrepit. Now, I like that one because you go into a treasure hoard, the shiniest thing in the treasure hoard the player characters go after. It's the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade thing. Everyone wants to get the shiny cup, but the real cup that was that the carpenter used was a carved piece of wood, simple, less than 1 copper piece to make, and that may be the most powerful item. So you could have 20 chalices that are all worth thousands of gold pieces, and then one simple wooden cup, and worth a single copper piece to even make. And yet that copper cup, maybe once a day when it's filled with holy water, is a cure potion thing. Player character, hey, get some holy water in it, pour it in. Maybe 3 times a day you can use it as a cure potion. Something like that. So anyway, long story short, create unique elements to your magic items for your games. Make them interesting. Make them seem and have an impact in your game so that they are more valuable than just a simple +1 sword. That this is something that a player character goes, I am not giving this up. This is awesome. I'm getting attention. It's creating stories. I'm having enemies come after me. That is sweet. I've got a guy who hates me. That's awesome. I've got people who are trying to connive, and every time I try to go to get my 5,000 gold pieces from selling it, they're trying to backstab me. I love it. The blade, I love drawing the black blade as it sucks the light out of the air or something. Descriptive elements are awesome. Also, I would say instead of going for completely magic items, don't forget masterwork items. Give them a +1 to hit or +1 damage or +1 in a particular circumstance. And even those items can have a lot of history. There's nothing, even today, in our modern day, there are, katanas and long swords where historians are trying to figure out who wielded them, why, what impact did they have, and the public would definitely know whether they're ceremonial, whether they're for combat, whether they were created as a particular, maybe this sword was crafted as a way for a peace treaty between 2 nations. That treaty has failed centuries ago, But if someone were to offer up this sword as a way to make peace, great thing. Maybe the sword wielder was a infamous criminal who killed many in this town, and the player character finds it, and now they go, wait a minute, we need to confiscate that weapon and destroy it. It represents something horrible in our community, and the player character's like, no, I like this thing. I've had 5 adventures with it. I'm keeping it. And it creates some animosity there. So instead of just opening the book, finding out how much it costs, trying to sell it, make some adventures around it, and make these items so desirable that your players would never, ever want to sell them. And if they do try to sell them, when in doubt, role play it out. As always, DBJ, being creative, try not to destroy anything by accident. Have a good one.